Okay, today's video is going to be on neo-paganism, and in this video I'm going to be talking about specifically like what is neo-paganism and so on and so forth. And then in the next video I'm going to deal with the conclusion. If I don't have enough time to do that, this may end up being a three-part series on neo-paganism. But whatever, you know? Okay, so what in the round world is neo-paganism? Neo-paganism is basically polytheism, the belief in many gods, goddesses, what have you. Yes, there may or may not be a belief in a chief deity like a ruler or head of the pantheon, like the Greeks had, or the early Abrahamic religions, such as the moon god religion. Uh, at any rate, that's neo-paganism, and the followers now there's two kinds of people. I mean, there could be more, but here's two: syncretic or eclectic. Now, syncretic folks like to pick and choose whatever they want to believe, and from other religions they pick and choose. Well, actually, just in general, pick and choose whatever they want to believe. And eclectic means that they're taking opinions from other people's writings, and therefore, I guess that serves as some sort of validity for them, for their point of view. But anyway, that's what eclectic means. Eclectic means, once again, picking and choosing from historical sources what they believe. Um, These approaches are inspired by historical traditions but not bound by any strict identification with a historical religion or culture. Now, of course, the opposite of this is Reconstructionism. On folklore, on occultist or national mysticist claims of continuity from racial memory. Okay, so these other branch of people are more focused on folklore. These are the opposite of these people. These other people. Their emphasis is on folklore, fairy tales, stories such as Grimm's fairy tales, or on occultist literature, basically, or national mysticist claims of continuity from racial memory. Now, what's a national mysticist? A national mysticist is someone who believes that when they were born, they had thought patterns that traced down from one family to the next, and that just somehow got handed on to them. Of course, I'm sorry, no, that's what racial memory is. National mysticist is the person who believes in the idea that if they do things a certain way, or if they get a whole bunch of people doing things a certain way, or a nation to do things a certain way, that that nation's status will be elevated. That nation's status will improve and I guess become godlike. What do neo-pagans believe in general? They're polytheistic, recognizing a plurality of divine beings, which may or may not be avatars, incarnations, or other aspects of an underlying unity. So basically, polytheistic, like I said, they believe many gods. These gods or goddesses may not have, they may or may not have incarnations. Now, what are incarnations? Well, the best thing I can compare that to is the end boss on some of the video games. You know, you defeat one boss and then he shapeshifts into another form. You defeat that form and then the next form comes up. Well, in the same way, that's what an incarnation is. Multiple personifications of the same essence or person. Now, they view nature as a theophany, a manifestation of divinity. So, therefore, not as a fallen creation, by the way. So, nature's God, in the sense that nature is the head of a pantheon, I guess, or it's an appearance of, or it is God, whatever. Forget the whole, whatever, the pantheon and all that. But anyway, nature's God. They recognize the female divine principle called the goddess, with a capital G, to distinguish her from many particular goddesses, as well as, or instead of the male divine principle, the god. Now, real quick before I get into that, in principle, there is a distinction of hard versus soft polytheism. Hard polytheism is a notion of the existence of gods and goddesses, independent from the human mind, from one another, or as distinct entities, but however part of a greater unity, such as the one or Neoplatonism and panentheism. Mythology of antiquity reflects this kind of understanding of the gods' natures. Soft polytheism considers the plurality of gods as aspects of other notion of the divine, including monism, pantheism, panentheism, or deism, psychologism, specifically the branch of psychology known as Jungianism. Real quick, what they're saying here is that there are people who are hard polytheists. They believe that the gods and goddesses exist independently from the human mind. And the other branch, known as soft polytheism, view the plurality of gods as aspects of other notions of the divine. So kind of like, once again, the video game end boss. So that's what you got there. Let's see. Many neo-pagans and neo-pagan traditions attempt to emphasize the hoary age of their sources. So in other words, they emphasize how old the religion is. Neopaganism is, specifically. Thus, Wicca, in particular, is sometimes referred to by its proponents as the old religion, a term popularized by Margaret Murray in the 1920s, while Germanic neo-paganism is referred to in some of its varieties as said, old custom. Such emphasis on the antiquity of religious tradition is not exclusive to neo-paganism and is found in many other religions. Okay, so I guess they tried to authenticate their religion based on the fact of how old they claim it is. But you're going to see why later that's not the way it happens. But anyway, mythologies of the ancient traditions are not generally considered to be literally factual by neo-pagans, in the sense that the Bible and other Abrahamic texts are often thought of by their followers. Especially eclectic neo-pagans are resistant to the concept of some sort of form of scripture or excessive structure, considering personal freedom to be one of the primary goals of their spirituality. In contrast, they go on and talk about the Reconstructionist people. People have a strong emphasis on world history and who only recognize certain historical texts and sources as being relevant to their belief system, intentionally focusing on one culture to the exclusion of others and having general disdain for the eclectic mentality. So, the mythological sources of the various neo-pagan traditions are similarly varied, including Celtic, Norse, Greek, Roman, Sumerian, Egyptian, and other. Some groups focus solely on one cultural tradition, while others draw from several. For example, Doreen Valiente's text, The Charge of the Goddess, used materials from the Gospel of Aradia, as well as material from Aleister Crowley's writings. Now, what they're saying here, basically, to break it all down, because sometimes this gets really wordy, what they're saying here is that these mythologies or these stories that they believe, they're not all dogmatic about it. They just believe it. That's pretty much about it. It's not used as like the Bible, It's not a standard or anything like that. It's just something that they believe. Anyway, specifically dealing with where neo-paganism came from and its claims of being original and old and being a continuation of paganism, which we'll get into later. Says here, the 1960s and 70s saw a resurgence in neo-druidism as well as the rise of Germanic neo-paganism and Asatru in the United States and in Iceland. With that, I'm going to stop this video and do part 2 of neo-paganism. I will see you then.